Okay, hello everyone. This is Colin Cox, and I wanted to start by apologizing for needing to cancel class today. Doing so on a day when we start a new essay is far from ideal. It's certainly not what I wanted to do, but that's why I am recording this video. But please know everything I talk about today, I intend to talk about on Wednesday as well. But I also think this might be a bit convenient for us. I know some of you mentioned via email that you would need to miss class today, either because of a personal illness or an illness in your family. So this video will remain on YouTube for the entire semester, which means it is something you can return to as many times as you need throughout the semester if you need reminders. But as always, remember, you can contact me. You can ask me questions in class. I'm happy to help. So, okay, we are starting the research essay unit, and the research essay can be a little tricky at times, and there's a lot that I want to talk about, but I'll work primarily from the research essay lecture notes that are in the research essay module. If you go to D2L, it should be the second document right below the prompt itself, and I want to talk about the prompt as well, and I'll do that now. So from time to time throughout this video, I'll share my screen with you. So let's see if I can successfully do that here. Okay. So this is the prompt itself as it appears on D2L. And I won't read the whole prompt to you, but, and I would encourage you, pause this video from time to time if you need to read any of the materials in front of you. But the things I want to bring to your attention are this, and I'll need to stop and take a drink of water from time to time. But and I'll talk about this more in just a moment. Research essays, you can, I suppose, divide them into two categories. There are informative research essays. So think about Wikipedia pages, for example, right? Pick any Wikipedia page about any topic, and you'll probably find a lot of interesting, more often than not, accurate information about a particular topic. But the thing about Wikipedia pages, they don't make an argument about a topic. So if you go to a Wikipedia page about World War II, or if you go to the Wikipedia page about World War II, it doesn't offer an argument or a take. It doesn't have a perspective necessarily on World War II. It's just providing basic information and basic citations. That is one kind of research essay, but that is not the kind of research essay that I want you to write. So instead, you will write, and this should not surprise you because I've asked you to do this throughout the semester. You will write an argumentative research essay, which is to say you will write a research essay with a thesis statement. And the way that I often frame this to my students is all research essays to some degree are informative research essays. But informative research essays are not argumentative research essays. And what that basically means is there will be elements of your essay that will do the kind of work you might see in an informative research essay, but the goal or the idea is it's all, at least it should, in theory, it should work toward supporting a larger argumentative claim about the topic you select. So I want you to keep that in mind, right? If you're not doing the work of supporting and developing an argument, then you are not satisfying one of the main requirements of this assignment. And again, we can talk about this more as we progress, but that's just something to keep in mind. It is not enough for you to select a topic and then compile information about that topic and present it in an essay. You also need to do the work of supporting and developing an argumentative claim or position about whatever topic you select. And you can also see here from the prompt when thinking about, well, how many sources do I need, right? You need at minimum 5. And you may certainly have more than 5, but that's the minimum requirements here, right? At least 5 sources. And I'll spend some time both today and on Wednesday talking about how you can find those sources, what are the best kinds of sources, what sorts of questions should you ask of a source when trying to assess its credibility. But when thinking about numbers, 5 at minimum. And you'll also notice the minimum word count is 1,500 words, and that does not include the works cited page. And I know that is clearly an increase from, everything else I've asked you to write this semester. But something I want you to keep in mind is this: you will, if you complete this essay successfully, incorporate researched material into the final draft of your essay, and that contributes toward the minimum word count. So even though 1,500 is more than I've asked you to write, you'll also have the opportunity to find information and incorporate that information into this essay, which again contributes to the overall word count. So don't think, even though, yeah, this is an increase, I am allowing you and frankly requiring you to do what I haven't thus far, which is conduct research. And that's, of course, information and material that you can and should incorporate into this essay. Now, when thinking about topics, you'll see there's information here at the bottom. You may think about the topic for this assignment in one of two ways. You can just select an entirely new topic, something that you have not written about thus far this semester in this class, or you can take a topic from a previous essay that you've written for me this semester, and you can build and develop that into this research essay. And we can talk about the benefits and limitations of both later at some other point. But what I basically want you to think or imagine is this: if you want to explore something new, that's great. You can do that. But if you have a topic that's perhaps sat with you throughout the semester, something you wish you could explore in more detail, this would be the perfect opportunity to do that. So again, the prompt, it is here on D2L throughout the semester. So, and throughout this unit, really, I would say. So return to it as often as possible to receive clarification about any of the particular requirements that I have for you throughout this unit. So, okay, I'll stop sharing for just a second. And yeah, I'll spend a little bit of time. And again, I'm working from the research essay lecture notes that's available to you in the research essay module. But I wanted to just reiterate something I said a moment ago about the differences between informative and argumentative research essays. So again, the idea here is you will stake a claim, you'll have an argument that you want to make about your particular topic. And I don't want you to think that you need to necessarily know what that is at the beginning of this process, because the research essay process, it's not linear. And the example that I often use is if you play, for example, video games with levels where you need to accomplish particular objectives before you can then transition to the next level, because that's a very linear process, right? That's not what the research essay process is like. The research essay process, instead, it's more, let us say, circular. You often find that you need to repeat previous steps to successfully complete a research essay. Therefore, I don't want you to think that with an argumentative research essay, you need to know exactly what you want to argue. Now, I would say you need to know what your topic is, right? You need to have at least a working understanding of your topic. But what I would argue is more important is developing an interesting and thought-provoking set of questions that guides your research. And that's why you'll hear me talk a lot about, well, what questions do you want to explore with this particular essay? Because if you don't know what questions you want to answer or what questions guide your research, you might find you're lost more often than not. But one of the beneficial reasons why I would encourage you, especially here at the beginning, to think more about questions and less about your thesis statement is because if you have an interesting set of questions and you use the research essay process as an opportunity to potentially answer those questions, once you have answers to those questions, you in effect have your thesis statement. So again, as let us say, anxiety inducing as the research essay process can be, and for a lot of students, it's because they want to know what they want to argue. I would say trust the process and trust yourself. And also trust the questions you're asking. Because again, if you know what questions you want to explore for this particular essay, at some point you'll arrive at answers which will help to clarify your thesis. So keep that in mind. Knowing the questions you want to answer is extremely important. And I would also say organization is incredibly important for this process as well, which is one of the reasons why I would encourage you to keep a research essay journal. And you'll notice there are no examples on D2L. It's because I don't like to be terribly prescriptive about this. Your research essay journal could look like, you know, a traditional journal, something, I probably have something here, you know, that looks like that. Oh yeah, something like this. Like one of these leather-bound journals, right? Maybe that's how you want to keep your research essay journal. Maybe it's just a Google Doc, maybe it's a Microsoft Word document, whatever. But I would strongly encourage you to keep a research essay journal, something that will allow you to a space that exists where you can organize your thoughts, where you can track your progress. And I would just encourage you to think about, well, how do we use journals, right? Whether it's just general all-purpose journal or something that you use for a particular purpose. We keep journals to, again, at times track progress. If we have a journal that we use for a particular purpose, like maybe an exercise journal or a reading journal. But I think journals are also interesting spaces where you can reflect, at least thinking about a research essay journal. It's a space where you can reflect on the process itself, which can be incredibly helpful. And I'll need to take a break here in just 1 second, but I'll explain why it's helpful. So give me a second here. I think what's so frustrating for students often about research essays is feeling as if they don't, or feeling as if they are not making progress. But that's potentially why a research essay journal is so useful. It's because if you actually keep a consistent journal, you can actually see that you are making progress. So you can, in many ways, challenge those negative thought patterns and assumptions that I think naturally emerge out of writing an essay that is so multifaceted, which is to say writing an essay that has a lot of moving parts and pieces. So that's another important reason why keeping a consistent research essay journal is so important. It allows you to see that you are in fact making progress. And I think that has a lot of utility. And this is, I'll talk about using the online databases in just a moment, but a research essay journal is also a space where you can, let us say, write or create particular information about sources so that you don't forget them later. It's a space where you can track, let us say, search terms and search terminology so that you're not, let us say, making the same mistakes from one research session to the next, because before you actually sit down to write this essay, you'll need to do a lot of thinking and a lot of researching, and knowing what terms and what terminology is incredibly useful and what terms and terminology are not useful. That's something that will save a remarkable amount of time. But if you don't have any way of remembering, if you're not tracking that, you might potentially just make the same mistakes over and over again, which is another reason why keeping a consistent journal is such a useful way of completing this particular essay. And it's a great way to save your time and not waste your time. So from here, what I want to talk about now, and this might be one of the final things I talk about because I want to keep this video relatively short, is, well, what sorts of questions should you ask of potential topics, right? So how should you think about topics? What makes for a good topic? What makes for a potentially bad topic? And what you might notice, especially from the prompt, is I don't suggest that there are certain topics that you should avoid, because you have the freedom to select whatever topic you want, but there are certain things that I would ask you to keep in mind. And I think I use this in the lecture notes as an example. and this was from maybe back in 2017 or 2018, right? But you might remember Colin Kaepernick, and I believe he played for the San Francisco, is it 49ers, right? I think that's the football team. He started to kneel during the national anthem during football games, right? And I had students who really wanted to write about this, but they wanted to write about it as it was happening in, I believe this was 2017. And I, of course, discouraged them from doing that, principally because at the time, there wasn't a lot of material available about this. That's not to say Colin Kaepernick was the first athlete to protest, let us say, the national anthem or something patriotic. You know, Muhammad Ali, for example, he famously refused to be drafted into the military for the Vietnam War, and he faced consequences for that. So athletes have done this kind of thing before, but at least in modern memory, I think this is one of the first public displays of dissent that I can remember. And again, this is when thinking about possible topics, right? Think about, well, how much information may or may not exist about a topic. That's one of the big things I would encourage you to think about, because if you don't think information exists, well, how do you do research about it? What kind of research exists? And you'll only know this by exploring possible topics, trying topics, seeing what works, but keep that in mind. Something else to keep in mind about topics is the level of specificity that you can and should bring to a possible topic. So for example, let us imagine that you wanted to write about inflation, right? That's something a lot of people are concerned about, the price of particular items and how that relates to supply and demand and so on and so forth. I want you to write at minimum a 1,500-word essay. So if you wanted to write about inflation and how it's affecting buyers and consumers in the United States and the United Kingdom and possibly China and Japan and so on and so forth, you could imagine how that example, like, that's just too much, right? That's too big, especially for the size and the scope of this essay. So if you wanted to, for example, write about inflation, I would say, well, let's restrict this to maybe just the United States or another particular country, or maybe even a region within the United States. So thinking about topics and thinking about a manageable way of approaching a topic, I would argue, is extremely important, because the last thing you want is a topic that's so big and overwhelming, it leaves you feeling as if you don't have or cannot say anything meaningful. And the last thing to consider when thinking about possible topics is, well, and maybe you wouldn't know this about a topic until you start actually researching it, but what kinds of information exists about a topic? You know, if there really isn't, let us say, a critical, even academic consensus about a topic, maybe it's something to avoid, right? The last thing you would want is to write an essay where all of your sources are, and this is just a hypothetical example, but all of your sources are anonymous blog entries that are not peer reviewed. And I'll talk about the peer review process on Wednesday. Again, that's just something to, it's a good idea to get a sense of, well, how much researched material exists about a possible topic and what kind of information is it? And this is something, again, that I'll talk about more on Wednesday and really throughout this whole unit, developing what is called information literacy, knowing how to critically assess sources and what sorts of questions you should ask. And I would say that starts with topic selection. So keep those ideas in mind when thinking about possible topics. But again, I'm happy to consult about all of this. And I suppose the final thing that I want to talk about, and this might be useful for those of you who are not quite sure what kind of topic you want, or maybe you have not decided on a topic. Our library has a lot of fantastic academic database journals available to you. And I want to bring a couple of those to your attention here. And again, I'll share my screen as a way of doing this. Okay, hold on. Yeah, here it is. So this is something called Academic OneFile. And I want to show you actually how to get to some of these databases. And I've provided another video in Yuja that explains this, but I'll just do it in real time right now. So hold on just a second. So if you go to the Northeast State website and then select campus resources, and there's a couple of different ways to get here, but you would want to go to the library main page and then select online databases. And I would encourage you to, at least for this class, stay with these broad coverage databases. And I know I have Academic One file open here, but I'll come back to that later this week. For now, I want you to think about opposing viewpoints. At one point, I believe it was called Opposing Viewpoints in Context. This is a great resource. And even if you know your topic or you have a sense of what your topic might be, I would still encourage you to go to opposing viewpoints and try to find that topic. And what you'll see here, you'll see a couple of different options. Academic One file, it's organized potential topics in one of two ways, either alphabetical, which I'll show you in just a moment, or by, let us say, these broad categories, right? Whether it's health and medicine, science, technology, and ethics, war and diplomacy, so on and so forth. But for now, I just want to go to the full alphabetical list. And I'll just select one of these, like the, I don't know, the EPA, right? The Environmental Protection Agency. And what's really great about all of these pages, and some have more information than others, but you'll find, for example, just a primer or a general summary about whatever topic you select. And what I also like is how opposing viewpoints, I almost said Academic One file, but how opposing viewpoints gives you a particular set of, let us say, main ideas, things to think about and consider if you're interested in this topic or a topic that might fall within this category. It also provides a particular set of questions that can be quite interesting for you to think about. But the thing that I want to emphasize, opposing viewpoints is great as a place to start, but I would argue you shouldn't, let us say, treat opposing viewpoints as a source. It's something that exists for, let us say, that brainstorming phase or part of a research essay project. And again, we'll talk more about maybe how to do research on these databases later, but I think this is a great place to start. You'll see that opposing viewpoints hyperlinks to other topics that might be interesting. There's related topics and subjects. Here, if you go back, you'll see there are potential academic journal articles and entries that might be useful for a topic within this broader topic. So my point is simply this: I would strongly encourage you to start with something like opposing viewpoints, whether you know your topic or not, because I think it's just a great place to start. It gives or provides an overview. It may give you a list of possible terms that might be interesting and might be useful for you when you move to when you move to actually doing research of your own. And again, I think having a sense of how people write about, think about, and talk about a topic is always useful. And I think I think opposing viewpoints offers that necessary context. And I think it offers, let us say, a primer that any and all of us would find useful when thinking about a possible topic or considering a possible topic. So I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay, terrific. So I think that's all I wanted to say for now. Again, I wanted to keep this video as manageable as possible. The goal here is for you to watch this before we meet again on Wednesday. And if you haven't started thinking about your topic, you should definitely do that. I know this is the first day of this unit, and I know you have about 4.5 to 5 weeks to complete this essay. But one of the things I'll emphasize throughout this process is waiting is a terrible idea because the research essay process has so many different aspects, parts, pieces. There are so many things you must do to successfully complete this assignment that, for example, simply does not exist for just a basic definition essay that does not require research. So keep all of that in mind. If you have questions between now and when we meet on Wednesday, do not hesitate to email me. But one of the first things I'll ask you on Wednesday is, hey, have you had an opportunity to think about a possible topic? And if so, what are you thinking about? What are your ideas? And I'll provide feedback. So, okay, I think that's where I want to stop. Have a wonderful day, everyone. And yeah, I'll see you on Wednesday. So, okay, thank you.